Yo. How y'all doing this weekend? No, is it the weekend? It's Monday. Okay, got you. It's always the weekend when you love what you're doing because it's never a hard day. But it's your boy Fred Biggie Smalls. We here and we're going to talk about back training today. And I'm just going to show you a routine that I really enjoy. We start out with some close grip pull-ups. And when we do those close grip pull-ups, a couple key points you want to remember is full range of motion. So making sure that when you're pulling, a lot of people, the mistake they make is they're thinking of pulling their chin to the bar and not their upper chest. So you want to pull your chest up to the bar because that's going to allow you to minimize bicep involvement, minimize shoulder involvement, and really help you focus on, it's impossible to completely take them out, but you want to focus it primarily on the lats, on the teres when you're doing your pull-ups. So we're going to focus on retracting the shoulder blades or the scapula, retracting it and depressing it as you pull it up. And you're going to drive your elbows and think your elbows driving into your hips the entire time as you pull your chest to the bar. Typically, we like to perform somewhere 8 to 12 range, but there's been other times where I've done as many as 50 reps just to do as many sets as I can to get to 50 reps. And sometimes people call stuff like that junk volume. But what I can promise you is I've done that routine where I've just done 50 reps and gotten amazing results, wider back, thicker back, and I don't think you can ever do enough pull-ups. As long as you're focusing on a contraction and you don't get to a point where you can no longer focus on a contraction, it becomes all arms, you're still getting quality work out of this movement. And the key thing is, if you feel like I'm not strong enough to do pull-ups, there's nothing wrong with using an assisted machine, getting full range of motion. Sometimes it can be better because in that elongated position and full stretch position, that's a very important part of getting the most out of your pull-ups. And when you're just starting, sometimes that can bother your shoulder joint if you're too heavy or you're not strong enough to control it. So starting with there's nothing wrong with starting with an assisted machine. And sometimes you can do them regular and then finish your last 2 sets on assisted machine so you can continue to get a quality contraction out of the movement while doing pull-ups. And then making sure that another good way to do it, to be able to do your pull-ups properly, make them effective and make it not all arm or so you're not kipping to get up there, is to use a band. So sometimes when I was getting heavier in my off season, I could do pull-ups, but on my second and third set or my third and fourth set, I would have to use a band. So both of those alternatives are perfectly fine. Just make sure you're getting a great contraction and able to lower yourself under control, right? From there, we're gonna move on to dumbbell rows, right? Now, dumbbell rows, again, I've done as many as 40 reps in a set, and I've done more consistently somewhere between 8 to 12. There's nothing wrong with taking your intensity. I wouldn't suggest going over 30 reps anymore. Science kind of tells us that we grow between 5 and 30 reps as long as you're hitting, leaving 1 rep in reserve or getting, as many as 2 reps in reserve, but taking it as close to failure as possible. So if we are in that rep range 5 to 30, anything goes. Now, I like to stay somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 8. That's always my base. And then nuances, variables that I'll add to the workout to switch it up. Then we'll go up into that higher rep range or lower rep range. But 8 to 12, you never can go wrong as long as you are somewhere close to failure in that rep range, okay? And again, when you're doing this movement, you're gonna make sure that you're starting the dumbbell under your chest and driving the elbow into your hip. Now, can you pull it straight up? Sure. You're gonna work more mid-back, less lat, upper scapula, but you get less bicep involvement when you drive it towards your hip. And I do not like the version where you're swinging it back and almost not rotating that elbow into your hip at all and just kind of like pulling your arm straight back. That works too, but I feel like you get more out of it, a better contraction through your upper back and get some lat involvement when you drive the elbow into the hip and not just swing the elbow back. So we'll show you both versions. Again, posture, control. You'll see people dropping their shoulders. You'll see people rounding their backs. The safest way, most effective way, flat back and elevate the sternum as you rotate the elbow back. From there, we're going to move on to some seated rows. Again, another scapula, retracting the scapula first before you start your row. There's many grips you can do. There's so many grips you can do. A pronated grip, a supinated grip, a neutral grip, a rotating grip if you're doing a unilateral where you start the hand pronated position and pull into a semi-supinated position, or go all the way and pull into a fully supinated position. None of it's wrong, okay? The name of the game is the body works in a lot of different angles and we're trying to maximize stimulation. So if we go in and do it exactly the same every time, your body will become more efficient at that movement. So it's very important to change up variables. And I like to change these variables up every, I'm either doing an A-B routine where routine A is maybe done with a supinated grip and routine B is maybe done with a neutral semi-supinated grip or neutral grip. And then back to the supinated grip on week 3, or C workout, and then D, we go back to the neutral grip. So basically we're doing the same thing, but a different grip every other week. And that provides enough of a variable stimulus to cause optimization when it comes to your body recruiting muscle fiber and creating change. Again, making sure we're working in that rep range where we're getting super close to failure between 5 and 30. But what I like to do with the seated rows is I like to actually do a warm up of like 3 sets of 6 and then go right into maybe 2 heavy sets that are going to cap out around 12 reps. Now, when I get super into my training and I'm like training consistently, I'm at maximum effort and strength, sometimes the stack's not enough. So depending on whether I can add weight to the stack or I just have to go more reps. And but there's been times when I've been able to do 25 reps with the stack. So in that point, maybe I'll add a couple pauses in there. Pause maybe every 5th rep for 2 to 3 seconds, or maybe I'll do like a 5-second negative. Different nuances to make the weight harder, so that I'm not just time under tension, but I'm going to failure within that rep range of 5 to 30. So those are all helpful tips and things to consider when doing seated rows. And the nuances are things to consider when doing all back movements. From there, we're going to walk our butts over and get into some stiff arm pull down. So we've just hit 2 movements for the mid back, focusing on the upper back, the traps, the scapula, the rhomboids, and now we're going back to purely a lat exercise when we do our stiff arm pull downs, okay? What are the keys here? The keys are full range of motion. A lot of times we'll see people pull the weight, they don't come all the way through, and other times we'll see people not allow their arms to fully extend. So again, you're still getting work in your back, you're just not maximizing your opportunity for growth, right? Because full range of motion is key when we're trying to optimize growth. I believe that what you want to do is act like you're pulling the weight down towards the ground and then elbows behind your back, right? And if you do that, you'll almost ensure that you're going to get the right movement, minimize tricep involvement, and keep the focus where it needs to be, which is your teres and your lat muscles. You want to stabilize your core, so every time before you're about to row or stiff arm pull that down, you want to contract the abs every time, contract the abs, and blow out as you're pulling down. And then deep breath in on the way up as you're allowing the negative motion or the eccentric, or as the muscle stretching and lengthening, and then back down into your concentric motion or shortening of the muscle and breathing out when you do that, contracting the ab to maximize lat contraction while you're doing that movement. When we're done that, we're going to go into rack deadlifts. Now, rack deadlifts is traditionally a more like a powerlifting movement, but it creates so much trauma to the back area if you're using heavy enough weight that everything's getting stimulated. Everything from the traps down into the rhomboids, the spina erecta, to all the way into even some rear delt stimulation. Lat stimulation if you take your arms out wider. So the rack deadlifts really can work the entire posterior chain, including your glutes and hamstrings, depending on how you're doing them. But I like to set the weight right below the knee one week and right above the knee the next week. And I go back between those two movements, and you can get pretty heavy. So, but if you want to go high rep, you will completely fatigue your entire back. If you're doing high rep, I really suggest you put this movement at the end of your routine. If you're going to go heavy, where you're thinking somewhere between 5 to 8 reps, then I put this in the beginning of your routine. Because obviously, central nervous system needs to be at its optimized. If you're going to go heavy to get the most out of it, you can be a little fatigued later on, because if you're going high rep, the goal is not to maximize the amount of weight you're lifting. The goal is to maximize contraction and maximize effort, so that you're feeling somewhere in that higher rep range of 15 to 20. Again, I would never take this movement to true failure unless you're just trying to do a max rep, which would only be done maybe once a month. But what I would do is get close to failure. So leaving 1 or 2 reps in reserve, you're still going to grow from that. Still going to maximize mechanical tension. You're going to get a lot out of it, and you will have less likely chance of injuring yourself, which is obviously important. So when you're starting this movement, elevate the sternum, retract the shoulder blades, and act like you're going to push your delts or your shoulders down into your back pockets before you start the pull. Make sure your back's flat or your chest a little bit higher than your hips, and pull from that position. When we're done, we're almost done here. We're going to finish our workout with just a finisher, and we're going to do that with some wide grip pull downs. Again, when you're doing wide grip pull downs, you can do them a couple different ways. You can do the traditional, where you're just pulling the elbows behind the back, and which is funny because a couple years ago they did a study and people thought those wide grip pull downs were no longer working your lats, but they are, without question, hitting your lats. Upper back too when you're doing them that way, but we're definitely hitting the lats. Or you can do it the newer way, which is pulling elbows straight down, keeping it in front, and bring it to almost like the bottom of your chest or upper pecs, but just keeping those elbows in front, so we purely stay on the more lat stimulation. Either way, you're going to get lat stimulation. I think when you pull the elbows back in the traditional manner, you're getting more of that upper back as well, mid back, and more teres. So either way is going to work for you, I promise. Just elevate the chest on the pull is what I like to do. Again, some of the newer methods are doing are letting the chest just kind of stay neutral and pulling down into your lats. That's going to work as well. I just prefer the old way, which they've shown now still stimulates the lats and elevating your chest and bringing the bar into your upper pecs. When you're doing it, if you can focus on bring your elbows and putting them in your back pocket or into your hips, you're gonna minimize shoulder and bicep involvement. And again, same deal. When you're about to pull, contract those abs, you will maximize the tension in your lats when you do that. So again, I never really go high rep. I might do some triple drop sets on that, which will put me in a higher rep range, but I'm still trying to fail in the 8 to 12 range when I'm doing each drop. So again, maximizing stimulation and without basically exhausting yourself in order to get there. And when I do it as a finisher, you're perfectly fine just going 3 sets of 6 as a warm-up, and then 1 hard set 8 to 12, and you'll get everything you need out of it. So this is one of my many back routines that I really enjoy. Again, we're stimulating everything from top to bottom: scapular retraction, scapular depression, scapular elevation. We're hitting the back in all 3 ranges of motion, and it will completely stimulate your back, and you'll be on your way to a bigger, more 3D back when you're done with this workout. So give it a try, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Comment down below, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Peace.